Hey everybody, this is David Skrika. So we're gonna have a couple stock charts of the day. Also, for some of you who just say watch the YouTube videos, please go to addictedtoprofits.net. By the end of the year, I'll be launching stockchartoftheday.com. I'm just gonna move what I have on Addicted to Profits over there, and then we'll do the updates on Stock Chart of the Day. I'll probably still do it on. I'll have to figure out what to do because Addicted to Profits, I'm gonna turn into a consulting business. I've moved offshore and I kind of know how to. When you move offshore, how to, to become a non-resident, the lawyers to get in the Bahamas, how to buy property. So I kind of want to monetize that and help people out if they also want to move offshore and become expats and stop paying income tax and legally and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to probably do that with Addicted to Profits, and then Stock Chart of the Day will just become the chart of the day. So I'll probably have a Stock Chart of the Day link on Addicted to Profits that will take you to Stock Chart of the Day. So, and, so I'll probably even write a little booklet on how to move. Obviously, I'm an expert on the Bahamas. I will have to talk to some people, in other jurisdictions, especially in the Caribbean, like the Caymans, etc., and put that all together. So that's something for quite a bit away in the future. So what I'm going to do with Addicted to Profits is Stock Chart of the Day. We're probably going to have on our free list, like 4 charts every week. And then I'm going to, then we have our pay members. I'm not going to do the big long overview anymore for the weekend. For the free, it's free, right? So for the free people, it's like, I'll do my little subject matter. I'll do 4 to 5 charts a week, whatever. And some of them won't be in video form. Some of them will just be like yesterday. I did a tale of 2 retailers, and I did it on Walmart and Target, because Target gapped up on its earnings. Walmart, Target gapped down, and just talked about the 2 companies. And I just did that in some simple graphics. So sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I'll do these videos because, I have other work to do and research to do. So, and then of course we're going to do, now that we're coming to the holidays, we're, and then we have more in-depth detailed for paying members. So that's essentially what I'm going to do. So now that we're like 2 days away from Thanksgiving, so Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm gonna have a couple videos, and then over the kind of like Thanksgiving and Black Friday, I'm gonna have and that weekend, I'm gonna have 2 videos that are more for paying members on these 2 subject matters. So 2 subject matters I'm going to look at for today's Stock Chart of the Day and tomorrow's Stock Chart of the Day is one is on Argentina. And the other one is on the gold and precious metals. We have gold hitting its head on 2000 today. Today we're going to focus on Argentina, and then in our paying members section, I'll have actually more in the terms of stock picks, companies I like, etc. Right? So let's go look at Argentina. A lot was made of this new president. So what I'm going to do in today's Stock Chart of the Day, and then for the free members here, I'm going to go look at the Argentinian economic statistics and the whatnot. So this is Argentinian GDP, which has rebounded from its 2020 lows, but the problem is they fix this currency at an artificial rate. It's not really this high because the real rate of the Argentinian currency is much lower than, so I guess you could call it the black market rate, than what the official rate is, right? So, but this is what's happened with Argentina. But over the max term, what you'll see is if you actually take into account that Argentina's economy has only doubled in the last 30 years, there's something called, that's really, really poor for an emerging market. You're probably averaging 1% a year. See the 25-year chart, et cetera, et cetera. So, this is really, really poor, what's happened in Argentina. And again, let's go look at things like, employment rate. The employment rate is only 44%, so less than half the people are employed. And the labor participation rate is only 47%. Like, for example, in Canada, the US, UK, countries like that, these things are in the 60 to 70% range. So a lot of people aren't even, like, if the unemployed rate, it doesn't even really reflect the fact it's only 6.2, but that's because a lot of people have just stopped looking for work. Like, it's really 20 to 30%, right? And then if we look at prices, of course, this is the thing that really will show what's going on with Argentina. The inflation rate, you can see, has slowly gone up. Has really spiked. Remember this crisis when Argentina defaulted, the inflation rate only got to like 40%, as you can see. Now it's at 140%. And during the max, you can see the massive hyperinflation that happened here back in the late 80s, early 90s, and went to 20,000%. So we're not to those levels, but we're still at a very, very bad level. And really, since that Argentina, and he's really goes back to the 70s, but really since that late 80s has been a total basket case and problem. So this is where all these problems come from. It's got a bloated state. It's super corrupt. They've had a bunch of IMF loans that have handcuffed the economy, and then also they've kept defaulting on those IMF loans. We'll look at producer prices. Actually, here's produce over price inflation. This is just month to month. So it peaked at 18% a few months ago. It's still 7-8% month to month, which annualizes up into over here's 100% a year. This is food inflation. And Argentina is a place that has, obviously famous for their steaks and beef and wine, and has about every food, domestically you can imagine. And food prices are 150%. And remember, Argentina after World War II was the third richest country per capita in the world. It was United States, Canada, of course, a lot of the rich Western European countries like the UK, Germany, etc., were all bombed out. So their economies were not thriving in the late 40s. So, but Argentina was the third richest country per capita in the world after, and much richer than the rest of South America. And if you go look at GDP, for example, GDP growth in Argentina since we're going to go back 50 years here. Max, actually, this only goes back to the early 2000s. But if you went back, you'll see that's what you get. You get these huge declines, and you can see how bad it's been since the financial crisis. Look at all these negative years, is that since, 2008, 2009, you can see that Argentina has, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, basically in the 14 years since then, it's had 7 negative years and only like 7 positive years. And a lot of these positive years were not high levels of growth. So really this 2012 to 2020 period, it was essentially almost an 8-year recession, which is to live in is very, very, miserable. If anyone knows anything. This is GDP from construction. And again, note, even with all this inflation, GDP for construction has not moved now really since the late, 2008 period, right? So I don't need to look at every single, GDP per capita. You can see here, again, go think of what's happened in the US since the financial crisis in the GDP per capita. And you can see in Argentina, it's gone down really since 2008, So that's again, a pretty miserable thing to live. And you can see, like I said, it started really in the 70s. You can see here, this is the mid 70s, and really Argentina shrank GDP per capita until the early 90s. So it's like another realm of that. You can see it actually did do well for this little period in here, but it's had these huge booms followed by huge busts, and we haven't seen much of a boom, back then. And if you go look at it, you're at 7,000 GDP per capita, and you have only doubled in 60 years. Like if we looked at what the US has done in 60 years, we're probably up. GDP per capita in the US is probably up 5 or 6-fold. And that's a developed economy since the early 60s. So it's really done miserably. And like places like Chile have completely caught up to it. Like Chile, for example, I think has about the same GDP per capita, and Chile was way poorer than Argentina back in the 60s and 70s. So that's where we are. So of course, this kind of right wing, I don't even want to call him this libertarian. He's a very brash guy too. Just got elected there, and there's this video of him on YouTube, of him just basically tearing off a billboard all of the ministries, health, Ministry of Education, all the ministries, and saying they're all gone. Right. So he really is. He's probably the most libertarian free market. They like to paint him as this far right guy, but really he's kind of a libertarian. So he's probably the most market friendly president in the world now. And a lot of people have pointed out he works for the world or has worked for the World Economic Forum. I'm not going to judge too much on that. I think we all have jobs we haven't liked in our life, or, the guy could have just been working there just to see how it works, I know I'm a essential libertarian, and my family was in politics for a while, and actually just made me more of a libertarian because I saw how much I didn't like it. So this is the problem with Argentina stocks right now is they're not really cheap. This is the MERV. Now, granted, hyperinflation has played a huge part in this. We're going to go back 10 years and 20 years. So all this inflation, inflation stocks are inflation hedge. So we can see there hasn't been much in domestic currency terms of a decline in Argentinian stocks. So the problem with owning them is that I think they're going to actually contract, because if they go to the US dollar, all of a sudden inflation is going to dry up, and this kind of inflation bid that's been in stocks is going to come out of it. And if we go look at the Argentinian ETF, you can see, I'm like the maximum pessimism trend. You can see 2020, you can see 2012. They were, the ETF was like a third of where it is now. Now, I'm not going to look at too many individual stocks. Again, that's for paying members. We're going to look at, but one stock I have looked at over the years, I will show, is TIO. And if we go back to TIO, going back to the financial crisis in Argentina in 2001, when the country defaulted, this went to being a penny stock and then rebounded. You can see to 12. And okay, you can see in US dollar stock terms, TIO has declined. But note that, and this is probably one stock you could put your toe in the water with. But notice again, it's not close to the 08 bottoms in US dollar terms, nowhere close to 2002, and many other stocks look like this in Argentina. So look, I think what you need, you have this thing where now you're going to have these pro-growth policies come in. But look at so much of the Argentina economy is look at this. Let's look at the GDP from public administration, right? Well, notice how much this has gone up. Right? A lot of this is part of the problem, that too much of their GDP is coming from, from the government. This is going to get killed now. This is going to basically, this is going to collapse. So, and even though in the, even though, this forecast should be much lower than it is now, because it's going to collapse. So the thing about it is, okay, longer term, this is going to work out. But if you go look at, like, say, what Thatcher did in England in the early 80s, it was a lot of short-term pain for longer-term gain. And the UK did very well in the 80s and 90s economically. It's that when Soros broke the pound, and even in the 2000s, until the real estate crisis. But, she had to kind of streamline the economy, which is very socialistic. A lot of big labor unions had power, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to see this in Argentina. There's going to be some pain here, because like this is going to go down now. Like, this has been, you can see this has gone up straight up. This only goes back 20 years, and this is about the only thing that's grown in Argentina, which is part of the problem, is like GDP from basically government services. So anyhow, that's essentially what we're going to see here. So going forward. So that's going to mean there'll probably be a short-term deflationary trade in Argentina before there's the turnaround. So that's what I'm kind of being patient on. Like I said, TIO at these levels, it's a pretty good deal at 7. It's 80% off its all-time highs. It's not an expensive stock. The yield's about 3%. So it's okay here. But like, I want to see more of these kind of really maximum pessimism kind of trades here. So I guess I'll leave that on that. So this was our Argentina thing. So like I said, this is out for Tuesday. Wednesday, we're going to talk about gold and precious metals. Black Friday, because it's Black Friday, we're going to talk about oil and gas. And then for our paying members, probably Thanksgiving morning. So I don't know, while you're maybe watching football or before the football games, before you eat your turkey, I'll put out my video on some Argentina ideas. And then over the weekend, I'll probably just put out a stock chart of the day for the free list. And over the weekend, actually it'll be Monday, for the free list and the pay list. So I probably will just put a chart out. So Monday we'll have a little video for the free list. We'll have a video on the season, gold, and because I want to see what the Fed minutes are about an hour away as I do this. I want to see what gold does, after the Fed minutes, because we're right at 2000 again, and see if it can break out. And we're going to kind of look at what happens to gold when you go from a rate hike to a rate neutral to a rate cut cycle. So I hope you enjoyed this. And by the way, with Argentina and all these stats and the inflation, I just think they're ahead of the rest of the world. Like I said, if people don't like me for my political or economic beliefs, I try to just talk about markets and that sort of thing in this. But like, I am a libertarian. I do think the Western world has too much socialism, too much spending, too much debt. And I think that Argentina just kind of entered this debt spiral that's been going on for decades, just, a decade or two ahead of the Western world. So we're going to get this kind of leader. And I'm not talking about Trump. Trump's another spendaholic, right? Like I'm talking about a real leader that just reins everything in and really shrinks the welfare state and outlay state. And at some point that's going to happen. And I think you go look at what's going on in Argentina now. That's we're I don't know if we're 5 years away or 10 years away, but that is going to happen, at some point in the Western world because of the debt that's been accumulated. Thank you very much.